Good evening, everybody. Well, that made it get quiet fast. I wasn't expecting it to get that quiet that fast. Hope everyone's doing well. You had a little break between business and now. I think all of you are in this room, probably know why you're in this room, but it's for our annual presentation of the Larry Rutter Award. My name is John Field. I think I know everyone here. I'm the Executive Secretary at the Salmon Commission headquarters in Vancouver. Please come on in. Before I get into the particulars of the award and describing the recipient and um, the scene behind the award, I thought it would be important, given today's headlines and what we're all reading in the papers, to put it in a little bit of context, at least context that I see. I think it's clear that our two countries are having a little moment here across the border. I don't think there's any small amount of uncertainty about the future of the two countries and their joined economies, or really even just the attitude of one capital about the other one. But I think it's also important to remember in these times that the two countries have known each other as sovereign nations for 158 years, since Canadian Confederation in 1867. For 88 years, or more than half of that relationship, the two countries have been cooperating under treaties for Pacific salmon. First, the IPSFC Convention, and now the Pacific Salmon Treaty. And for the last 40 of those 88 years, almost to the day, the countries have worked within the PSC, within our community, for the ensure protection of their own and their neighbors' stocks, cooperate in research and enhancement, advance their fisheries, and as we saw last night during the MOU signing ceremony, to honor the rights, the culture, and the food security of Indigenous nations, those nations that have known each other for millennia before Canada and the United States even existed. And I would say that none of that sounds to me like a relationship that's in trouble. None of that sounds like one country is trying to get advantage over the other one. None of that sounds like the PSC is being infected by troubles from outside. And I think everyone in this room is already working to keep it that way. Whatever particular fishery problem is today or the next day or the week after that. And part of that work to keep ourselves healthy and keep the status quo prevailing is why we're here tonight. To come together and recall that we're all aiming for the same thing, for the same goal of sustainable salmon fisheries and sustainable relationship around them. When the Commission established this award 9 years ago, 2016, it had a few goals in mind: to honor a person or organization that's advanced Pacific salmon conservation and management through their unique accomplishments, and to honor Larry Rutter's legacy as a unifying force between the two countries within our PSC community. Larry, of course, believed in that unity, and his long career demonstrated it. It was 3 decades, more than 3 decades of work with the National Marine Fisheries Service, the Treaty Indian tribes, all wrapped up in the PSC umbrella eventually. It meant that Larry had an immense impact on the work that we do collectively to ensure and manage Pacific salmon. And I think if Larry were here to witness today's tension across the border, I know he'd call on us to find our better angels in the midst of all that's happening. And speaking of Larry, I'm happy to report that his widow, Deborah Shaver, has joined us online tonight. I don't think you can't see Deborah, but I know she's there. I talked to John. She can hear us and she can see us through the live feed. She had some personal things that she had to tend to back home, but she is very happy that she can join us remotely. Okay, so that's the context for the award. I wanted to take a little bit of time and go into the specifics. Each year, the selection committee, you've heard me say this many times, we're humbled by the work, the dedication, the knowledge that everyone pours into the PSC as an organization. Every year, it's incredibly hard to pick one person out of the nominations. But we stick with it. Every year, we're able to finally come to a conclusion, and this year is no different. I wanted to thank my colleague, Susan Bishop. Susan, I think, is in the room, maybe not. I know she had a sick husband. And Neil Davis, who are on the selection committee with me and helped choose the 2025 recipient of the Larry Rutter Memorial Award, Mr. Steve Gotch. So I'll have a few more words to say about Steve and why we chose him to receive the award. I know there are some colleagues in the audience that want to come up and say a few words as well, and then we'll ask Steve to come up and take us home. We're recording the ceremony. In addition to live streaming it right now, the recording will be up on our YouTube channel. So those of you who are on here or came in late and want to catch the beginning, you can go back and do that. So those of you who don't know Steve already and his broad and deep footprint in the commission, I think deserve a little history. He served the commission in really many capacities over the years, including Yukon River Panel Co-Chair, Transboundary Panel Co-Chair, and Northern Endowment Fund Committee Co-Chair. I've witnessed it firsthand. Anyone who's worked with Steve has witnessed this firsthand. And I think the first impression we all have is diplomacy, this soft-spokenness, this ability to get to yes. He's got this thoughtful, this proactive approach to dealing with our salmon fisheries, food security, preserving cultures, all of this in a backdrop of salmon population crashes, environmental change, food security issues that are wrapped up in that, and impacts to cultural knowledge. All of that work that Steve does is really hard to fully describe in one person standing here or even one evening. As co-chair of the Yukon River Panel, Steve's had to confront not only declining Chinook salmon up in that system, but a fall chum salmon run collapse that precipitated big food security issues throughout the watershed, right on the heels of the COVID pandemic. In response to growing concern about the long-term health of those Yukon Chinook, he reached out to his colleagues at the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, ADF&G, to figure out a collaborative approach to addressing these big, widespread issues and recognizing, of course, that it's in the best interest of both countries to find a way forward. The result of all that, many of you might have seen it. If you follow Yukon Panel News and are tracking what's happening up there, they reached a 7-year agreement between ADF&G and DFO. That agreement suspends directed Chinook salmon commercial, sport, domestic, and personal use fisheries in the main stem of the Yukon and the Canadian tributaries. And recognizing the importance of Chinook for ceremonial use and transmission of cultural knowledge, the parties built in flexibility. And if circumstances warrant, it allows them to allow a little bit of harvest opportunity just for those purposes during the rebuilding period. That agreement also places a big priority on traditional and local ecological knowledge and research on the health of Yukon Chinook to better understand the causes of these low returns and to identify possible solutions. I've seen it already. The Yukon panel has launched itself into a process of developing a recovery plan to guide their comeback, all under Steve's leadership with his Alaskan counterparts. As transboundary panel leader, Steve's worked very long hours to ensure the treaty imparts benefits to both the US and Canada. He's helped guide the panel through some very sticky issues, including today, we just heard about resolution of the 2025 Taku River subsistence fishery. Back in the midst of 2020, during the COVID years and the years that followed 2020, we all know the travel restrictions. Remember how hard it was to get back and forth across the US-Canada border. All of that would have impeded treaty implementation in the two countries, but Steve worked tirelessly with his counterparts in the Canadian Border Services to get approval of transport of enhanced sockeye from the US into Canada, and also got approval for US biologists to cross the border and use Canadian camps for bilateral assessment projects in the midst of all of that stuff that I know all of us were struggling with. On the Northern Endowment Fund Committee, something else I've witnessed firsthand. Steve comes to the table prepared. He comes with a steel trap memory to debate the merits of each proposal and to cooperate with his colleagues from the American side of the table to make sound decisions on who gets the final awards each year. He knows about the finite resources each year that are available in the Northern Fund, but works to maximize the flow of funds to the best possible suite of projects. I'd say that Steve's approach to addressing these challenges, the knowledge of fisheries and the communities that rely on them, his work ethic, and as I mentioned, this diplomatic approach he has to everyone he works with really have been this cementing asset up and down the commission community. And I'll stop here where I began, talking about the strength of the cross-border relationship. It's important to know that Steve's nomination this year for the Larry Rutter Award came from ADF&G. It came from the very same people that Steve sits across the table from, has to negotiate with, has to have very difficult conversations with, and they were the ones who really took it upon themselves, amongst all the fans of Steve Gotch in this process, to submit his nomination. I think in that sense, Steve's receipt of the award this year really embodies the best of what the PSC can do. It does all these things for us, develops lasting relationships that survive the test of time and survive the duress of our particular squabbles and issues week in, week out, year in, year out. And I know Larry would be proud of that if he was here today. So, Steve, I and the rest of your PSC family congratulate you. And in the next step of that congratulations, I'll invite Andy Thompson up as the head of the Canadian section. I know he's got a few things to say.
Thank you, Mr. Field. As John has already outlined, it rather goes without saying the contributions that Steve has made to the Canada's PSC team and to the broader PSC objectives. He has led the Yukon transboundary panels, developed productive relationships with our treaty partners, as obviously exhibited today, supported really innovative thinking within those panels, and he's truly encyclopedic in his knowledge of the treaty and all the associated bylaws, I might add. It's a rare day or issue where Steve can be stumped on a PSC question, and we rely on him so much for that. Steve's had a very diverse career within Fisheries and Oceans Canada, from protecting some of the most fragile species in the Great Lakes through proving himself as a innovative participant in the 2005 Yukon Placer Mining Agreement, to leading DFO's Yukon Transboundary Operations Area Director, and his current role, which is overseeing all area operations for the Pacific region. On a day-to-day basis, he's asked to delve into fisheries management issues, Indigenous relations and reconciliation agreements, salmon stock assessment programs, and really more importantly, respond to the emergent issues that come at us each and every day, from wildfires and rock slides and everything else we ask Steve to do. In all this, Steve brings his A game, the one we always see in PSC process. He is a consummate professional, whether in a meeting room or on the spawning grounds. And yes, he does wear a blazer in both environments. As John's laid out, the PSD family is well aware of Steve's contributions from the renegotiations of the TBR chapters during the last round to working through issues of other agreement like the test fisheries, and of course the moratorium that John's laid out as well. He continues to bring a very thoughtful approach to everything, and does it in a collaborative and pragmatic way. In his spare time, not we give him much, but in his spare time, when he's not out enjoying outdoor pursuits, he's also a community builder in Whitehorse. He spends countless hours in winter evenings supporting community recreation, maintaining ski trails and safety across the vast neighborhood. A lot for his own exercise, but there does have benefits for everyone else. Recently, Steve was awarded the King Charles Coronation Medal in Canada for his contributions to Canada, and we're proud to see him today receive the Larry Rutter Award. The grand opportunity to work a little bit with Larry on the Southern Endowment Fund, and I echo John's comments. He would be very happy to see an individual like Steve Gotch receive this award. So congratulations, Steve.
Well, I don't have notes like that. Steve, congratulations. You're one of the people in my phone book that I can actually call when I have a problem with Canada and trying to get an issue addressed. That goes from a wide range of issues. It's about time that we look beyond just the transboundary river issues and everything else and look to the Yukon. You know, we were facing a huge issue on the Yukon. We were facing a potential Sarah listing. We were facing a potential issue on the U.S. side of the border of that being followed by NOAA. You stepped up. You talked us through. I spent many hours in the car with you. You know, we were driving around Canada on friendship tours, and we basically crafted out that 7-year agreement, and that was groundbreaking. You know, you had a lot of insights as to how that should be structured and moving forward. Couldn't have done it without you. We're better off. Salmon are better off. We're better off in the Yukon. I won't say it was without pain. This could have been useful at certain times through the talking dialogue, but it was actually, you know, it was kind of groundbreaking what we did. So you should be commended for that. You know, during COVID, when Canada largely shut down, and we decided in Alaska we were going to continue our assessment programs. You know, we picked up the phone, we called you, and you were able to work with Rebecca at the time and get us access to those sites so we could continue to collect that data that was necessary, again, for salmon conservation. We have had a couple mine incidences, you know, and you worked hard to recognize that those mine incidents might have occurred in Canada, but they really affected our users. And you've reached out to us. You've kept us in the loop on what those issues are. And I can't tell you how important that is, because when there's a mine incident in Canada, my users call me and they want to immediately blame Canada. But the steps that the Yukon government took and DFO took on the Eagle mine issue in the Yukon was simply amazing. So thank you for that. The one time I've seen your negotiation skills fail a little bit was when we drove to the Chilcotin Lake, and the lodge that was supposed to take us there actually thought we were coming the day after that. And it was about 10:30 at night. And that's the first time I actually saw you silent. So that was when the Alaskan negotiation tactics came into play, and we walked up to the door and said, find us a place to sleep. So, but no, of all, as if you need a talking stick, Steve. Yeah, I got to commend you, and I want to thank you for everything that you've done. You are well deserving of this award, and you're a good partner across the border. And it was an honor for the state of Alaska, and with Danny's support of actually getting you to be recognized for this award. So thank you for everything you've done. It's an honor working with you.
Would anyone else like to make remarks before I invite Steve up to the dais? No, Steve, the microphone is all. Oh, Danny. Sorry. All right. I spoke too soon.
So I gave Commissioner Vincent Lang his talking points. So it's harder for me to construct, but it was absolutely a pleasure and my honor to help with the nomination for you for this award. I am so proud to do that. The work that we've done together in a pretty short period of time is nothing short of amazing. And I appreciate all those extra efforts during the chaos of COVID to let us use bilateral camps and keep those projects going. The long hours spent in the car across northern British Columbia and up to the Chilcotin, where we worked on multiple drafts of the Yukon Agreement, which really is groundbreaking. I mean, this is, for us, a huge step forward, taking a 7-year perspective, not just doing every year and saying, well, what does the run look like? Can we have fisheries? Should we have fisheries? And assessing that. We took a life cycle approach, a full 7 years. There's a lot of pain involved with that, but it's a giant step forward. And for the first time, we actually created a new category of fishery. When there isn't enough fish for even subsistence, we are allowing a limited harvest opportunity for the transmission of cultural knowledge and for ceremonies. It's really amazing. And if we had not been in meetings the last month and I had to buy one gift to you, as Doug likes to say, oh, the Undertaker's here with the black suits, I would have bought you a colored blazer. Steve, congratulations. You are very deserving, and I agree with everyone else. And to Larry's widow, this honor is well deserved.
Steve, I think your hour has arrived. The mic is all yours. Depends.
Thank you. Thank you very much, John. And I will admit that in preparing for this evening, one of the first questions I asked was, how much time do I have? And I was confidently told an hour and 30 minutes, but that's no longer the case. So I'll have to abbreviate some of my speech that I've prepared. But I wanted to just start off by acknowledging that it really is a tremendous honor for me to receive this significant recognition. When I was first notified that I'd been selected as this year's recipient of the Larry Rutter Award, I immediately thought of the many individuals who have truly dedicated their lives to the sustainable management, conservation, and restoration of Pacific salmon. And many of you are in the room here this evening and online. And since 2002, I've been provided the opportunity to contribute to many of the Pacific salmon processes and forums within the Pacific Salmon Commission, as well as the broader treaty implementation process. I was extremely fortunate to have served with Larry Rutter on the Pacific Salmon Endowment Fund Committee. He was genuinely welcoming, always engaged, and fundamentally cared about both salmon and salmon people, in particular, those within the Pacific Salmon Commission process. For me, this recognition is both meaningful, given that I had the opportunity to work with Larry, but importantly, it also provides me with the opportunity to acknowledge that this process is truly about people working together to achieve a common objective through the relationships that we've forged. Yes, our focus has been on salmon, and the many of challenges that we've faced with salmon have been truly difficult. But the immeasurable value for me has been having the opportunity to both work with and learn from each and every one of you. The Pacific Salmon Commission process, as John Field mentioned, is about bringing people from diverse backgrounds and differing perspectives together to harness our strengths and to work cooperatively towards a common goal, which is ensuring salmon remain an integral foundation of the culture, the ecosystems, and the people of the Pacific Northwest. Recognizing this, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge a few of the many individuals who have taken the time to share their knowledge, experience, and perspectives with me over the years. Firstly, I'd like to start with Paul Sprout, who many of you know consistently had the uncanny ability to communicate extremely complex, multifaceted salmon problems in a simple and succinct way, seemingly on a dime. Dr. Brian Riddell, who honestly is probably the only person that I've ever met that could stay engaged in an intense conversation about salmon longer than me. Sue Farlinger and Rebecca Reed, who instilled the importance of building relationships to solve the most complicated problems, even though it may seem impossible at times. And it's interesting, when I put my thoughts together, I had no idea that tonight Sue was taking her final exam on hypnosis. I guess she's taking a course in hypnosis. Not sure if that's in preparation for the upcoming negotiations, but in any case, wanted to sincerely acknowledge Chief Russ Jones and Marie Ned, whose extensive knowledge, patience, and calm demeanor have taught me to keep all things in perspective. Bill Auger, the one person I've always been able to count on to roll up his sleeves and find a practical solution to the toughest challenges, no matter how long it took. Bill's a true fisherman to the core, and maybe in another life, I could have been your deckhand. John McCullough, who keeps the Northern Fund Committee grounded in our decision-making to ensure that each dollar we commit to projects achieves the greatest outcomes for Pacific salmon. Through the transboundary panel process, Pete Hagan, John H. Clark, James Becker, Ed Jones, and Troy Tynes, and the Alaskan transboundary panel members who I've had the honor of working with over the years. You are truly the finest individuals I've ever met. And as Alaskans and Canadians, we have always agreed on one thing, and that is to hold salmon in the highest regard. Gord Sterrett and members of the First Nations caucus who have the uncanny ability to ask me the toughest questions and have taught me to view this Pacific Salmon Commission process through the lens of what's possible as opposed to what is not. In particular, Sherry Frockledge, Linnea Workman, Lawrence Joe, Carrie Carlick, Chris Kendall, and Jennifer Gould, as well as many other Canadian transboundary panel members whose dedication, passion, and commitment to Pacific salmon conservation is second to none. In the far north, Chief Pauline Frost serves with me on the Yukon River panel and has done so for many years. She's been a trusted advisor to me, a mentor, and a friend. Bill Waugh and Carino Salome, I think they're hiding out at the back of the room here, who have always stepped up when I needed them the most to do more, to do better, to do their work sooner in order to ensure that our Canadian delegation is prepared for these meetings and ensure that they proceed smoothly. And then finally, probably arguably the two people that have the toughest jobs in this room, Commissioner Doug Vincent Lang and Danny Evanson, whose resilience and genuine commitment to the sustainable management of Pacific salmon is second to none. The story of Pacific salmon is one of challenge, but importantly, it's also one of perseverance and resilience. And so as I humbly reflect on this very meaningful recognition, I ask each of you to join me in our reflection on what Pacific salmon once were, where we find ourselves today, and what each of us can do to ensure sustainable and resilient Pacific salmon resource for the people of Canada and the United States into the future. I wanted to extend my sincere gratitude and appreciation to the transboundary panel members who provided me with this very nice card, all of your signatures inside. This card is meaningful to me because it has an art image from Yukon artist Richard Shorty, which the Yukon is my adopted home, and is signed by many of the members of the Alaskan delegation, which is my reciprocal home, I believe. Is that the right term, Doug? So thank you very much for that. And then finally, last night, I was reflecting on how oftentimes in these processes, we focus on the challenges that salmon face, and we find ourselves searching for solutions and searching for a possible path forward in the future that gives us hope. And I was thinking in our darkest hour, we always have plan B. And is it okay to share plan B? Okay, it's Ron Allen for president 2028. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I think that's I think that's a wrap on the ceremony. Steve will be here, I know, for several more minutes if you want to say hi. And other than that, have a great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow morning here in the halls. Good night, everybody.